I think one of the biggest things to keep in mind is that things will happen that you didn't expect to happen, and to be looking for opportunities where you least expect it. For me, growing up as I did on a farm in central Minnesota with cows and pigs and chickens, the idea of working in film was not even on the radar. But I loved movies, and on Saturday night I would sneak downstairs after my mom and dad went to bed. We had one TV and it was right outside their bedroom, and I would watch movies with no sound just so I could watch movies because I was so, basically I tried to lip read what was going on, but I just fell in love with movies, any movie, it didn't matter what movie. So I always knew I loved movies, but the idea of, it was never a possibility. Basically, I thought I had three options. I could be a nurse, I could be a nun, or I could be a school teacher. But I was really lucky. I had a couple of teachers who made a difference, who really opened up little possibilities. And in my case, television actually opened up possibilities. So when I went off to college, I had another great teacher who said, I think you have talent. I think you're good at producing things and putting things together and managing a lot of things. It made me think about, okay, I want to work in this world somehow. And this wonderful teacher who became my counselor, created what was called an arts administration degree. So it was a theater major and a business minor, and then I double majored in English. So I had sort of the passion I wanted, and then I got really lucky. He brought up a teacher who worked at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, and I worked really hard, and I got an A, and that visiting professor said, when you get ready to, graduate, you should come and maybe try to do an internship at the Guthrie Theater. And I got that internship. And when I got that internship, I worked really hard. And they said, we never hire our interns, ever. Nobody gets hired. You're here for 6 months. Don't get too happy. Don't get too settled, because after 6 months, you're out. And after 4 months, they said, we'd like to offer you a job. So that was an incredible opportunity. And while I was working at the Guthrie Theater, my boyfriend got me a membership to this organization called The Loft, which was a center for poets and creative writers. It was founded by people like Garrison Keillor and Judy Guest, who wrote Ordinary People, and all these great Minnesota writers. And so in one of their newsletters, they said they were looking for a program director. And I applied and I got that job. And then the real turning point was while I was, the program director at the Writers Center, I read about in a magazine this place called the Sundance Institute. And it sounds crazy, but the minute I read that, I knew I would work there. And I don't know if we will ourselves to get the things we want, or if we just are so silly that we only see that. But it was like, I said, I'm going to work there. And 2 years later, I was working there. I applied and they didn't have a position. They said, we're going to keep your resume on file. And they called and they gave me a part-time job for the festival. And I worked really, really hard. And then I went back to Minnesota, and then they called about 3 months later and said, we have an opening and we'd like you to come and work here. And I said, when? And they said, last week. And I was like, okay, I'm there. I've got a full-time job. I'm really happy. And my job was to basically help pull together the film festival and do the summer labs. But I knew ultimately I wanted to work on film. So I volunteered and said, can I be one of the people who watches the short films and helps pick the short films? So I spent all my nights and weekends watching the 1,200. No, I didn't watch all 1,200, but watching short films. And I began to curate the Shorts Festival. And then that just led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And so that's, obviously there were more turns in the road, but when you look back and try to figure out what were the key things, those were sort of the key things. And after Sundance, I knew I needed to spread my wings a little bit. And so I went and got this job at this place called Independent Television Service. And it was new. They'd only been around for a couple of years, I think 4 years at the time. And so it was great. I got to sort of make up my job. I got to create and do what I wanted to do and lean into the things that were really of interest to me. And if I succeeded, then I got to try other new things. And then when I thought, I'm done here, and I literally was just about to leave that organization, this opportunity came along to start Independent Lens, which has now been obviously the most extraordinary experience I could have. So, just be open to things. Don't put roadblocks on yourself. Don't put boxes around things. It's going to happen. It's going to be somewhere you don't expect. And that's not to say don't have ideas and don't pursue what you want to pursue, but don't get so narrow in your thinking that you can't see an opportunity, because most of the women I know who are doing things they love, it came to them sort of a side path. It didn't happen when they thought it would.